Good morning and welcome to the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha TV, the perfect show to kickstart your day, bringing you national, international sports news. I'm Aishwarya Kapoor. Let us begin with the headlines. Voting underway for third phase of elections in West Bengal. Fate of 418 candidates to be sealed across 62 constituencies. Congress delegation meets Uttarakhand governor, submits memorandum saying that they should be first invited to form the government if president's rule is lifted in the state. With the drought situation worsening, Congress and CPI demand Prime Minister to call all-party meeting of chief ministers of drought-hit states. Vijay Mallya convicted by Hyderabad court in cheque bouncing case. Quantum to be announced on 5th of May. In New York, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley says responsibility of banks to ensure defaulters do not get away. And India and China agree for a mutually acceptable border solution. Trust on peaceful negotiations during annual 19th round of boundary talks in Beijing. First up, all the election-related news in our special segment, Verdict 2016. Well, polling for the crucial third phase of West Bengal Assembly elections for 62 seats is taking place today. Now, these seats include 7 constituencies in Kolkata. Over 1.37 crore electorate will seal the fate of 418 candidates, including 34 female, at the end of voting today. The constituencies are spread over Murshidabad, Nadia, Burdwan districts and North Kolkata. Now, key candidates in this phase include Trinamool ministers Shashi Panja and Sadhan Pandey, BJP National Secretary Rahul Sinha, 5-time Congress MLA Mohammad Saurabh, CPIM MLA Anisur Rahman and retired IPS officer Nazrul Islam. The Election Commission has identified 3,401 hamlets in the phase as vulnerable. Security forces have been strengthened with around 1 lakh security personnel, including 75,000 central forces spread all over the state. Trinamool Congress, Left Congress Alliance and BJP have put up a fight in all the seats. Former Minister Humayun Kabir, who was expelled from Trinamool Congress for 6 years for making anti-party statements, is in the fray from Reji Nagar seat as an independent. Meanwhile, in related news, West Bengal Chief Minister and Trinamool Congress Supremo Mamata Banerjee has replied to the show cause notice issued to her for violating the Model Code of Conduct by the Election Commission. The contents of the reply are not known. Now, Mamata Banerjee was issued a show cause notice for prima facie violating the Model Code by announcing carving out a new Asansol district during an election rally. The West Bengal Chief Secretary had first responded to the show cause, which the EC rejected, and asked Mamata to reply in person. The TMC maintains that the decision on Asansol was taken during a cabinet meet in December 2015 and hence there is nothing new in the announcement. Now on to the political developments in Uttarakhand, where a delegation of the Congress led by State Party Chief Kishore Upadhyay met Governor K. Paul and submitted a memorandum stating that he should be first invited to form the government if the president's rule is withdrawn from the state. Party has expressed apprehensions that the centre may withdraw president's rule in the state and attempt to form a non-Congress government with the support of rebel party MLAs. The centre had on 27th of March brought Uttarakhand under president's rule, citing a constitutional breakdown in wake of a rebellion in the ruling Congress. The BJP, on the other hand, has indicated that it will wait for the judgment of the court before making any move in the state. The party has said it has the majority in the state assembly. The development comes after the Uttarakhand High Court also made a veiled warning to the centre, hoping that it will not provoke the court by revoking the central rule in the state now, while the hearing is still on.
देखिए, ये चर्चा में है। जिस तरीके से विजयवर्गीय आदि ने कहा है, उससे इस तरीके की बातों को बहुत बल मिला है, लेकिन हाईकोर्ट के सम्मुख जो कुछ कहा है भाजपा ने केंद्र सरकार के वकीलों ने, मैं नहीं समझता उसके बाद इस तरीके का कोई दुस्साहस करेंगे और उच्च न्यायालय का अपमान करेंगे।
मुझे बहुत ही सुपुष्ट सूत्रों से जानकारी मिली है कि जिस तरह से उत्तराखंड में अवैधानिक तरीके से संविधान की हत्या करके, लोकशाही की हत्या करके नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने राष्ट्रपति शासन लगाया, एक बहुत ही अच्छा काम करने वाली सरकार को भंग करने का काम किया, और अब जब वो देख रहे हैं कि हर तरफ से वो हार रहे हैं, मुझे ये जानकारी मिली है कि वो राष्ट्रपति शासन को हटा करके अपने किसी प्यादे को यहाँ पर जो है मुख्यमंत्री के रूप में अवैध रूप से शपथ दिलवा सकते हैं।
हम बहुमत के साथ महामहिम राज्यपाल के पास गए थे और हमने 36 विधायकों को वहाँ पर खड़ा किया था। आज भी हमारे पास बहुमत मौका मिला तो हम फ्लोर पर बहुमत सिद्ध करेंगे।
Earlier, hearing a petition against the imposition of President's rule in Uttarakhand, the State High Court on Wednesday observed that the legitimacy of the President's decision to suspend the Assembly is subject to judicial review. Now, a division bench for the High Court said that even the President can be wrong at times.
Even the President can go wrong, said the Uttarakhand High Court on Wednesday while hearing a petition challenging the President's rule in the state. A two-judge bench of Chief Justice K.M. Joseph and Justice V.K. Bisht held that the legitimacy of the President's decision to suspend the Uttarakhand Assembly is subject to judicial review. The centre had contended that courts cannot review the President's rule.
What the court can inquire into, whether while giving advice to the President, the Council of Ministers placed before him all the relevant materials and facts. But otherwise, the Constitution says that the advice tendered by the Council of Ministers to the President cannot be questioned in a court of law.
Sir, what are the Supreme Court judgment regarding this SR Bome judgment?
Ji, SR Bome judgment is one of them, yes.
The High Court also claimed that the centre had introduced chaos by taking away the power of an elected government in the state. It said it's irrelevant for the cabinet to assume disqualification as one of the grounds while recommending President's rule. Following the court's observations, Congress leaders said they are hopeful of a favourable decision.
जो स्टेटमेंट केंद्र सरकार के वकीलों का था कि इस दौरान कुछ भी नहीं किया जाएगा जब तक ये मामला सुनवाई में है, वो बदलना नहीं चाहिए, और उच्च न्यायालय ने ये बड़ा स्पष्ट किया कि अगर वो पूरा मामला बदलता है, सच्चाई ज़मीनी बदलती है इस दौरान, तो वो सही नहीं होगा संवैधानिक रूप से। इसलिए अब ये निर्णय, जहाँ तक हमारा सवाल है, इस पर दलीलें खत्म हो गई।
The BJP, on the other hand, is confident of forming a government in the hill state, claiming a majority of MLAs are in its favour.
There is an institutional respect that will exist between all the various institutions because that's the constitutional scheme. In the constitutional scheme, everything is fixed and determined in its own particular way. And wherever anything goes contrary to that, the courts naturally would intervene and would give a pronouncement of a judgment or a order or whatever.
Uttarakhand was brought under President's rule after the centre claimed there was a breakdown of governance in the state. After the Speaker disqualified 9 MLAs from the Assembly following a rebellion in the ruling Congress. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, with the drought situation worsening and agrarian crisis looming across half of the country, the Congress and the CPI have demanded that the government should convene an all-party meeting to discuss the calamity and figure out ways to combat it. Now, Congress urged Prime Minister Narendra Modi to call a meeting of chief ministers of drought-hit states to tackle the situation. The opposition also demanded Manrega works to be taken up immediately in 3 lakh affected villages and the implementation of the National Food Security Act in the drought-hit states. CPI also expressed concerns over the situation, claiming that no such crisis situation had arisen in the last 25 years. The party called for immediate measures like arrangement of supply of drinking water in parched regions, drought pension to agricultural workers and free food to those affected. Over 33 crore people in 2,55,000 villages in 10 states are reeling under severe drought. Meanwhile, Jalna district in Marathwada region has seen back-to-back droughts for the last 5 years. The rising level of mercury has made life tough for the livestock and farmers alike. All the 969 villages in the district are drought hit. This year, 36 farmers committed suicide here. Here is a special report.
Drought has pushed the 3,000-odd residents of Anandwani village in Jalna district deeper into debt. But the recurring crop failure has kept its worst for the residents of Partur Tehsil. Here the municipality hand pump manages to cough out barely 2 vessels of water in a week. Water sources all around have dried up. People are buying water. Farmers went through 2 sowing cycles, but both times the crops failed. All farmers without exception are crushed under debt. And the local administration seems to be missing in action.
क्रॉप लोन हो वगैरह ये 2 साल से ऐसे दुष्काल होने के वास्ते कुछ शेतकरी के पास तो कोई भी नहीं अभी शेतकरी को कोई चलने के वास्ते अब होना है तो क्रॉप लोन वो खेती का वो जो कर्ज लिए वाला है ना वो माफ करना चाहिए उन्होंने।
पानी की समस्या ऐसी है कि गांव में कोई बोर को या वीर को पानी नहीं है, तो हम पानी जो लेते हैं तो सब पानी हम प्राइवेट में खरीद लेते हैं।
60 kilometers away from the Jalna district headquarters, the 90 villages in Partur Tehsil are facing acute water scarcity. The tanker supplies are too little, which drives villagers to consume even polluted water. In the absence of drought relief, villagers are leaving their homes, neglecting their farms and even livestock. Ironically enough, Maharashtra Water Supply Minister Baban Rao Lonekar hails from this home.
ज़मीनी स्तर पर बोले तो ये लगातार 3 साल से परतूर तहसील में अकाल की परिस्थिति है। किसान जो है उनकी माली हालत जो है जो चाहिए वैसी उभारने की जो आवश्यकता थी वो उभार तो नहीं रही।
The administration is quite clear it has done all that it could to ease the situation. In order to prevent starvation, all the relevant government schemes are being implemented. The state government has spent 20 crore rupees to ensure water supply, while last year it distributed 190 crore rupees as crop insurance.
अभी गाँव में जो है ये पानी देने के लिए हम टैंकर से जो है पानी दे रहे हैं। हमने एक प्लान बनाया जो लगभग जो है 50 करोड़ का है, तो उसमें पूरे गांव जो है लगभग 480 गाँव में टैंकर से पानी दे रहे हैं।
The drought crisis in Jalna is not getting the same attention as Latur, where water trains have been sent. But the conditions on the ground are no less scary for farmers who are facing a life and death struggle. In the absence of timely measures, leaving their homes is the only option before the villagers. Arvind Kumar Singh's report from Jalna for Rajya Sabha TV.
And in Breakfast News, we'll take a very short break here. We'll be back with more news. Stay tuned.
Tales that inspire. Stories of social change. A salute to diversity. Promoting public discourse. Events that motivate. Inspiring the innovative spirit. Watch Rajya Sabha television documentaries on Rajya Sabha television.
The splendid, grand and massive neo-Buddhist copper dome of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. It gets its influence from stupa at Sanchi. The dome is more than twice the height of the rest of the building. The reinforced concrete shell of the outer dome began to be formed during the beginning of 1929. The last stone of the dome was laid on April 6, 1929.
Welcome back. Now, amid negativity over Beijing's blocking of India's bid in the United Nations to ban JEM chief Masood Azhar, India and China have agreed to adhere to peaceful negotiations to settle the border issue and reach a fair, reasonable and mutually acceptable solution. The decision was taken during the annual 19th round of boundary talks here between National Security Advisor Ajit Doval and his Chinese counterpart Yang Jiechi. Both the leaders had an extensive discussion on the 3,488-kilometer long Line of Actual Control, or the LAC, which remains undemarcated and is a cause of tensions between the two sides. Besides the border issue, Doval and Yang also discussed all contentious bilateral, regional and international matters of mutual concern. Bilateral ties have entered a new era of comprehensive and rapid development since Chinese President Xi Jinping paid a successful visit to India in 2014 and Prime Minister Narendra Modi travelled to China next year, that is 2015. And even though the government is yet to make a final announcement on the Rafale deal, the ruling government party BJP has said that the deal has been finalized. Officially, the negotiations between the two countries are at an advanced stage, but the party claimed in a tweet that Modi government has saved $3.2 billion or 21,000 crore rupees in the renegotiation with the French government. The tweet also highlighted that the government saved public money and the deal resulted in gain of technological knowledge and strengthening the air power to defend the border. Earlier, Minister of State for Defence Rao Inderjit Singh had said that the two countries had resolved most of the hitches in the multi-billion euro Rafale deal and the remaining issues will be cleared in the next DSC meet scheduled to be held today. And UB Group Chairman Vijay Mallya has been convicted by a local court in Hyderabad in a cheque bouncing case against the grounded Kingfisher Airlines Limited. A fresh non-bailable warrant has been issued against the former liquor baron. The court verdict against Mallya came on cases filed by GMR Hyderabad International Airport Limited. Now, two cheque bounce cases amounting to 50 lakh rupees were filed against the grounded Kingfisher Airline chairman, and after a detailed hearing, the court convicted Mallya and other senior officials of the company after they did not appear before the court. The quantum of punishment will be announced on 5th of May. This is the second non-bailable warrant issued against Mallya in the last 3 days. ED had earlier obtained a non-bailable warrant against him from a Mumbai court in a money laundering case. Kingfisher Airlines has defaulted on a repayment of over 9,000 crore rupees of bank loan. The Ministry of External Affairs recently suspended Mallya's diplomatic passport for a period of 4 weeks on the notice of Enforcement Directorate. Meanwhile, in related news, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley has said that it was the responsibility of the banks to ensure that no defaulter manages to get away. Jaitley, who is presently in New York, said this as the row over recovery of debt from tycoon Vijay Mallya rages on. Jaitley also said that merely by escaping the geographical boundaries of India, you don't run away from the liabilities that you owe to the public system. The Finance Minister also said that competent investigating agencies are looking into the criminal law matters related to the case and banks are looking into the settlements matter. He said that both the extremely competent institutions who can strictly within the parameters of the law can act. And RBI Governor Raghuram Rajan has cautioned against euphoria about India being the world's fastest growing economy.
As a central banker who has to be pragmatic, I cannot get euphoric.
Rajan said that India still remains one of the poorest nations and has a long way to go. Now, Rajan's comments came closely on the heels of his controversial comment of one-eyed is king analogy on the Indian economy. Rajan further added that the current growth rate needs to be sustained for the next 20 years to ensure a decent livelihood for every Indian. He further added that the Chinese economy was smaller than India's in 1960s, but is now 5 times bigger. He also said that the BRICS, among BRICS, India has the lowest per capita GDP. Rajan also said that being the central bank chief, he will be pragmatic and not euphoric.
As a central banker who has to be pragmatic, I cannot get euphoric if India is the fastest growing large economy. Our current growth certainly reflects the hard work of the government and the people of the country.
But we have to repeat this performance for the next 20 years before we can give every Indian a decent livelihood.
Political strategist Prashant Kishore will hold meetings with leaders of various frontal organizations of the Congress today as part of the strategizing for the Uttar Pradesh elections due next year. Kishore, along with AICC General Secretary in charge of the state, Madhusudan Misri, and UPCC President Nirmal Khatri will meet leaders of Minority Cell, Women's Cell, NSUI, Seva Dal, Youth Congress, as well as SC/ST Cell. He will primarily take feedback from them as part of the preparation for devising electoral strategy. Kishore, who had successfully handled the election campaign of Prime Minister Narendra Modi during the 2014 Lok Sabha elections and Nitish Kumar in the last year's Bihar polls, was roped in by the Congress for the crucial Uttar Pradesh polls. He had earlier visited Lucknow on 11th of March and listened to the suggestions and views of senior party leaders. Meanwhile, Congress Vice President Rahul Gandhi is on a day tour of his constituency Amethi. He will be meeting people at the Janta Darbar and he will later visit villages in the constituencies today. Let's now bring you some international news. And Norwegian mass murderer Anders Behring Breivik has won part of a human rights case against the Norwegian state. The court upheld his claim that some of his treatment amounted to inhuman or degrading treatment. Breivik had killed 69 people at a summer camp for young centre-left political activities on the island of Utoya in July 2011. Earlier that day, he had also set off a car bomb in the capital Oslo, killing 8 people. Breivik had challenged the government over his solitary confinement, which saw him kept alone in his cell for 22 to 23 hours a day, denied contact with other inmates and only communicating with the prison staff through a thick glass barrier. The court said that the right not to be subjected to inhuman treatment represented a fundamental value in a democratic society and also applied to terrorists and killers. Now, his state lawyer has said that though the government was surprised by the verdict, it has not decided whether to appeal or not.
Som jeg sier, så vi uenige i deler av dommen som går oss imot, og det gjelder både forståelsen av jussen i dette, og det gjelder også forståelsen av de faktiske omstendighetene, kan man si.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has begun evacuating hundreds of wounded people from besieged towns in Syria. This rare sign of humanitarian progress is amid faltered peace talks and a fraying ceasefire. In Geneva, the Syrian government said that it was pushing on with indirect negotiations, calling the opposition's freeze on its participation absurd theatre. The Anti-Government High Negotiations Committee this week suspended its participation in the UN broker talks until it could see progress on political transition and humanitarian issues. The United Nations has secured the evacuation of dozens of people needing medical attention from 4 besieged towns as part of a complex humanitarian mission. The simultaneous evacuations were also taking place from rebel-held Zabadani and Madaya near Damascus and the government-held towns of Fua and Kafraya in northwest Idlib province. Well, the U.S. Justice Department has opened a criminal investigation involving the leaked Panama Papers on offshore shell companies. The letter from the Office of Manhattan U.S. Attorney Preet Bharara asks to discuss the investigation with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which work with the media outlets to reveal the documents. The letter, dated 3rd of April and obtained from the ICIJ, said that Bharara's office has opened a criminal investigation regarding matters to which the Panama Papers are relevant. The letter gave no information on the subject of the investigation. Access to the documents remains limited to a handful of international media organizations. Now, reports from the ICIJ and the media groups based on the Panama Papers leak a number of international leaders, including Russian President Vladimir Putin, British Prime Minister David Cameron, and leaders and top officials in Ukraine, China, and Argentina, have been linked to offshore shell companies that can be used to hide wealth and launder money. US President Barack Obama held a meeting with Saudi Arabia's King Salman ahead of a summit with other Gulf leaders today. After the meet, the White House moved to tamp down suggestions that ties with Saudi Arabia are fraying. Obama spent 2.5 hours with the 80-year-old monarch and held talks on varied issues that have recently strained the alliance, including the conflict in Yemen, the role of Iran, Lebanon's instability and the fight against Islamic State. Obama's fourth visit to the country comes after US's lifting of sanctions against Iran. Also, Gulf nations, Gulf nations' chief Shia rival, with a visit hoping to reassure it and the other Gulf allies of Washington's commitment to their security and to seek ways to reduce sectarian tensions in the region. Obama will today attending a summit with other Gulf Cooperation Council group of countries with regional tensions with Iran likely to be high on agenda. The GCC groups include Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, the UAE and Oman. Let's get to some more international stories in World Wrap. A 6.1 magnitude earthquake struck off the coast of Ecuador on Wednesday, sowing a new panic 4 days after a powerful quake killed more than 525 people and left hundreds missing. The shallow quake hit just off the coastal town of Musin in northwestern Ecuador. While no damage or casualties were immediately reported, it did jolt nerves anew. This even as rescue workers continued pulling out bodies from the rubble of Saturday's 7.8 magnitude earthquake, which was Ecuador's worst in nearly 40 years. Satellite images show that North Korea has resumed tunnel excavation at its main nuclear site. New satellite imagery of Pyongyang nuclear test site shows the limited vehicle and equipment activity. Now, experts say that the activities may be signs of an impending nuclear test. They expect North Korea to conduct a fifth nuclear test in the near future, probably in early May, following an embarrassing failure in the test of an immediate-range missile last week. China will encourage ships flying its flag to take the Northwest Passage via the Arctic Ocean. A local newspaper said that the route opened by the global warming will be used to cut travel times between Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. However, Canada regards the Northwest Passage as a part of its internal waters, while some other countries consider it as an international strait. The US Supreme Court has ruled that almost $2 billion in frozen Iranian assets must be turned over to American families of people killed in the 1983 bombing of a US Marine Corps barracks in Beirut and other attacks blamed on Iran. The ruling dealt a setback to Iran's central bank, which had challenged a 2014 ruling by a US court that the money should be handed over to the plaintiffs. The lawsuit was brought by more than 1,000 Americans who have waged a long legal battle seeking compensation for the attacks that they say Iran orchestrated. Seven Pakistani policemen, three of them who were guarding polio workers, have been killed in Karachi. 8 gunmen on motorcycles fired at a group of 3 police guards and later at a van containing 4 officers. Islamist militants oppose vaccination, saying that it is a Western conspiracy to sterilize Pakistani children. Pakistan is only one of the 2 countries, along with Afghanistan, where polio remains endemic. Well, and that's all in this edition of news. But before we go, we'll leave you with visuals of Prime Minister Narendra Modi joining the prominent world leaders at the Madame Tussauds. Now, his new wax figures took up residence at 4 Madame Tussauds attractions in London, Singapore, Hong Kong and Bangkok. Indeed, a proud moment for every Indian. Thanks so much for your time.